Mark Carney is joining the Liberals as an advisor to Justin Trudeau, and I've got a flash into the future where Pierre Poilievre is arguing with Mark Carney. It's actually a flash from the past where Pierre Poilievre was arguing with Mark Carney about foreign jobs and pipelines. It's interesting. And the Coutts sentencing. We got to start at the Coutts sentencing. Yesterday, the sentence came down, and it's the whole point of what they did to those Coutts guys was specifically to stop and quell any kind of ideas that anybody had of peaceful protests. They will throw the book at you, and they're going to try and do the same to Tamara Lich and Chris Barber. Don't misunderstand. And they're not going to have any credit for pretrial incarceration, right? Like the Coutts guys got 6.5 years, and they get credit for pretrial incarceration, so they've got 2 years left. And that's insane. That's crazy town. These judges and the people who have made this decision are politically motivated ideologues, globalists, communists, and it seems like they're breaking the law. And I don't know how you get your life stolen from you for attending a peaceful protest like that and not get bitter and focused on revenge. I think The Count of Monte Cristo would be my favorite book. If I was in there, I would read it and plan my own Count of Monte Cristo revenge story. Because holy smoke, these people are evil. Like, this doesn't serve the public good at all. And where's Danielle Smith? Where's Danielle Smith? Holy cow. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, we've got to start in Coutts. Sheila Gunn Reid says, breaking, Coutts 2 sentenced to prison. Sentence as follows. Olyenik, 6 years before reduction for time served. Carbe, 6.5 years before reduction for time served. Also, lifetime firearms prohibitions and DNA submission. More to come. And Brittany says, a cop who raped someone will do less time. That's crazy. Doug Snellgrove, former Newfoundland cop who raped a civilian, released on day parole. Former cop served a quarter of their sentence. So that's pretty wild stuff, right? Alex says, if you're struggling to understand the Coutts sentencing that occurred today, let me provide some myth busting. They were not charged with domestic terrorism. They were not charged with possessing restricted firearms. They were not charged with possessing restricted firearms. They were not found guilty on the conspiracy charge. They did not bring a pipe bomb anywhere near to the protest. They were never considered a flight risk or danger to the public. They did not have previous criminal convictions aside from one small possession of ecstasy charge from one of the defendants when he was a minor. They did not bring guns to the border to have a shootout with the cops. They considered bringing them to Coutts to be safe, to be a safer alternative to leaving them in their unattended vehicles in Milk River. They did not threaten police. No violence occurred in Coutts whatsoever. There was no evidence presented of any outsider group directing activity in Coutts. Diagolon never came up once during the court proceedings. There was no evidence that there was white supremacists. One defendant is non-white, nor in possession of violent extremist views. They were charged with mischief, which amounted to participating in a large-scale peaceful protest that includes thousands of others. They were charged with weapons for a dangerous purpose on account of Canada having no legal concept of preemptive self-defense. Lastly, one defendant was charged with possession of an explosive device as it pertains to a 10-year-old firecracker intended for use in a gravel quarry, which was left over in his deceased father's belongings 200 kilometers away from the protest. If, after reading that, you still have trouble understanding today's sentencing of the so-called Coutts 2 in the context of what is normally a revolving door justice system in Canada, I'm sure many others can relate. And if you're interested, you can find out more about the case in this thread here. And Godzilla says, thanks for the breakdown, Alex. Whatever happened to the right to a speedy trial as guaranteed in by the Charter of Rights and Freedoms for the Coutts 4? 2 years and 2.5 years in remand before trial was a breach of their charter rights. This is a travesty of justice. I agree completely. He says, to be perfectly clear, I don't think these men did no wrong. They erred in judgment left and right, but that shouldn't disqualify someone from their basic legal rights to bail and an expedient trial. Yeah, among other things, among not having the prosecution coordinate against them, among a whole bunch of other things. Alberta Leonidas says, with the Coutts travesty, I will remind you that the RCMP perjured themselves and fabricated evidence to give a reason to a court judge. Now, or to give a reason to a corrupt judge, Now remind me why Danielle Smith hasn't replaced the RCMP in Alberta yet, or done anything about any of this. Like nothing at all. Jason says, important Coutts update. Chris and Tony both sentenced to 6 years and 6.5 years. With remand, credit, and 2/3 sentencing requirements, both could be out early 25. I wouldn't anticipate that. Like, I don't understand why Like, it seems like erroneous hopium if they want to throw the book at them. Like, they didn't need to go to jail in the first place. They didn't need to sit in remand custody for the duration of the trial. They didn't have an option for bail, despite their clean records, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So why all of a sudden would they go easy on them now? They've sentenced them. They put them in jail just to let them out in early 25. It doesn't make any sense. Blah, blah, blah. So, sorry, Jason's talking about all this stuff. Here's other people who committed other crimes who get less time, right? And liberal pedophiles get less time. Former Liberal candidate handed 240-day conditional sentence. Former Ontario deputy minister given 3 years for child porn offenses. So you can be a pedophile. A Calgary man who murdered his roommate got 4 years, right? This guy, the guy who beheaded a guy on a bus got out earlier than 6 years, right? This is insane. Andy Lee is responding to this. Man who killed off-duty BC police officer in a skateboard attack sentenced to 5 years. But if you are a nonviolent person and the judge and the prosecutors think that you have mean thoughts, 6 years for you, right? Unbelievable stuff. So the Coutts stuff is a tragedy. Apparently they're going to put a motion in this morning to appeal it, but too late. The whole thing has been a travesty. Where's Danielle Smith? Where's her AG? There are things that they could do and they didn't. They've ignored these people. They've ignored Arthur Pawlowski. They've ignored the travesty of COVID, and they've rewarded the people who perpetrated it and punished the people who stopped it. What's your game, Danielle Smith? Ryan Garrettson, let's move on a little bit. This is Mark Carney's infiltration of the Liberal Party. And Ryan says, the Liberals just posted this. Mark Carney to chair Leaders Task Force on Economic Growth. So he's being onboarded as an advisor to Justin Trudeau? Ryan says, back in 2022, Pierre Poilievre called out Mark Carney for supporting oil pipelines in other countries, but not Canada. This is the guy Trudeau just asked to be his special advisor. There's no doubt Carney has been in Trudeau's ear for years, helping him to destroy our oil industry. Here is Poilievre versus Carney, and maybe this is a preview of things to come. Maybe not, but we'll see.
Oppose pipelines in Canada, but you support them in the UAE and in Brazil. That's what you've actually said.
There are specific.
That's your double standard.
It is not a double standard.
It is a double standard.
No, it's not.
You make billions of dollars off foreign pipelines, and you shut them down here at home, putting our people out of work.
That you are a representative of the Canadian people, and one of your responsibilities, including at this committee,
is to fight for Canadian jobs, and not foreign jobs like you.
Exactly, to fight for Canadian jobs, and the types of Canadian jobs that are durable and are going to move forward.
Right.
I grew up in Alberta. I know the innovative nature of that.
Well, go try to give that answer back in Alberta, because I grew up there too, and I can tell you the people. I can tell you the people of Alberta would be ashamed with the answer you just gave. That you would give billions of dollars to foreign pipelines, while not allowing Canadians to build pipelines here at home. That is the kind of elite Davos hypocrisy.
So there you go. Right. So the back and forth is already very robust. Lisa McLeod is highlighting this. National Newswatch is a liberal ragmag that wouldn't exist without subsidy money, right? And they say Mark Carney to lead Liberal Economic Task Force ahead of the next election. So they only publish approved Liberal talking points, right? They don't publish any actual news. They're just a propaganda mag. Anyway, Lisa McLeod says, thanks, but grocery bills are still too high. Gas is expensive and housing is out of reach for far too many people. Do we really need the people who got us into this mess coming up with more solutions? The solutions will encumber us more, right? And that's not good. We don't want that. Chrystia Freeland's excited. Oh, she's so excited. She says, I'm thrilled to welcome my longtime and respected friend, Mark Carney, to our Liberal team. She really says that, by the way. His experience will build on that of our economic team as we deliver a more affordable and innovative economy for all Canadians. Chrystia Freeland has destroyed our economy. Destroyed it. And it's like... It's not better. It's much, much worse. There's 10 cities now. Bradshaw responds to this. She says, basically what Trudeau is saying by hiring Carney is that he has no confidence in what Chrystia Freeland has been doing. Yet both Chrystia Freeland and Mark Carney are high-ranking officers in the World Economic Forum. Nothing to see here. And somebody, Rob says, the climate reformer Mark Carney of the United Nations is now part of the Liberal team. This comes as no surprise to any of us. Canadians, as we are well aware, you are all traitors to the country. Right. And so like these guys are World Economic Forum assets. Like Perhaps Chrystia Freeland is moving on. She's no longer Justin's handler. Maybe that's going to be Mark Carney, right? Because they feel like they're losing Canada. But maybe not. Maybe they're just flipping over to Pierre Poilievre. Who knows, right? Seems like same policies, different party. Greg says Mark Carney, UN Special Envoy, WEF Board, Chatham House President, Canada 2020 Advisory Chair, Group of 30, Council of Inclusive Capitalism, Bilderberg, Breton Wood Committee, Brookfield, 15-minute cities. This is who's running our country. Global News says former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney will take on a new role as chair of the Liberal Party task force advising Justin Trudeau, party leader, about economic growth. And Alberta Deportakami says, well, that's one heck of a globalist resume. It could be worse, I guess. We could be stuck with Chrystia Freeland. Mark Carney says the world is becoming more divided and dangerous, but the hard work of Canadians means we can manage these risks and seize the enormous opportunities in the new global economy. The new global economy? Andrew says, will you be resigning as chair of Brookfield Asset Management and Bloomberg to be free of conflict of interest in your role advising the government? Is that why the role is with the Liberal Party? Very, very sneaky, right? Very sneaky. The roles within the Liberal Party, not advising the government as such. Andy Lee says, fun fact about Mark Carney and the Bank of the Bank of China from an old censored account that some of you might remember. Andy Lee from November 21 says, Brookfield regularly takes out massive loans to acquire property, and when it does, it often turns to the Bank of China for financing. Why do we care? Because the Bank of China receives an undisclosed amount of wage supports, and Mark Carney advised Trudeau on corporate subsidies. And Andy Lee again says, regulators have fined the Canadian arm of a state-owned bank. The Bank of China paid $701,000 for breaching the Proceeds of Crime and Terrorist Financing Act. There were multiple citations, including not reporting money laundering. The Bank of China received pandemic wage supports. So, yowza, right? And Mark Carney is neck deep into all of these shenanigans, right? Brian Lilly says, Mark Carney is going to advise the Liberal Party and the Prime Minister on economic policy. What about his many conflicts of interest? And what happened to last time Trudeau appointed an economic advisory council? It wasn't good for Canada. Read and retweet. So if you're interested in Brian Lilly's stuff, you can check that out. Here is another one. Gov.exe says Mark Carney is a much bigger POS than Trudeau ever could be, and would be at the end, and it would be the end of Canada as we know it. We're already there. We're already there. Like, I went down to the United States and it felt like the United States. I came back to Canada and I had to double check that I was in Canada and didn't take a wrong turn somewhere on the way back, right? Like, you go into a Walmart and you think to yourself, where am I? Is this small town Canada, right? Or if you start trying to go up in the northern areas and things like that, rural Deer Lake, Newfoundland, the Tim Hortons there. Do you know who's working in the Tim Hortons there? You could tell me, because you'd be right? Like 9 out of 10 staff are foreign workers. Why do you think that is? Goodness me, right? And so, like, that's pretty terrible. If people thought the Liberals were bad now, just wait and see what Mark Carney could do to the country. It's bad. It's bad already. It's bad already. And like the end of Canada as we know it, well, wasn't that 2010? Didn't that happen when 2012, the Large Hadron Collider got turned on and we slid out of that universe and into another universe where the Berenstain Bears is spelled weird, right? No? Let's talk about Russia. And Cat Canada is suing Mark Gerritsen. And she says, I'm taking legal action against Mark Gerritsen at suegerritsen.com. Where have we seen these tactics before? She's a senior editor for the Countersignal. Countersignal is run by Cian Bexty. Cian Bexty came up under Ezra Levant running Rebel stuff, and he watched Ezra Levant do all of this kind of stuff. So does Mark Gerritsen deserve to be sued? Yes, he sure does. Good for her, I guess. And I mean, if you know what to do with all of this, there are people who deserve to be sued. I think Spotify is breaching my charter rights right now, and I'm not sure how to deal with that. I reached out to Eva Chipik to see if there's anything here, but Spotify removed my episodes because they don't align to the user terms. But since when do the user terms supersede the charter? How is that normalized? And when I ask which parts of the episode violate your user terms, they don't tell me. So can they just take down an episode and say you violated this user terms, and then not tell me how I violated the user terms and still be compliant with my charter rights being intact? I don't think so. And I'd like to sue them. I think it'd probably be $1 million per instance, right? Like that's a pretty big, egregious violation of my rights. So like, and they're a big company. They could take that, $1 million, right? I'd be interested in any lawyers who are interested in the case. Let's do it. I think that there's something there, but anyway, Cat Canada. But if I were to put something up like sue Spotify, help me sue Spotify, I wouldn't know what to do with the things, and I'd probably get the wrong lawyer, right? Like I don't know lawyers, so like I don't know. And to be honest with you, I've spoken with lawyers in the past, and almost every single one, with the possible exception of Eva, I've spoken to Eva Chipik as well. Every single one, after thinking about my interaction with them, it seemed like they were trying to manipulate me into doing what they wanted me to do, rather than listening to me and telling me the bare bones clean legal options. Does that make sense? So I feel manipulated, but I don't know. There's too much to properly litigate, and the government's too enshrined to, just look at the Coutts response. Like, just look at what happened with Coutts. That was influenced by the government, and the people who could have stepped in to stop it, Danielle Smith, her AG, didn't. So nobody's on the side of the people at this point in time. So if I even did bring a lawsuit against Spotify or anything to that effect, I'd probably lose, and they'd probably throw me in jail for being egregious enough to think that I had free speech or something to that effect. Anyway, here is Cat Canada. I don't think I'm going to play the video. I'll go through this a little bit. She says, this morning in an emotional outburst, Trudeau's deputy House leader, Mark Gerritsen, crossed a line. He accused me of being funded by the Russian government and used his lies to demand I be hauled in front of Parliament. Let me be clear, I'm not funded by a foreign government. Gerritsen is a liar. Neither I nor the Countersignal has ever taken a dime from Russia, Tenant Media, or any other foreign regime. She continues, she says, I'm not a Russian operative as he alleges. I'm not paid by a foreign government to hold him accountable. I just expose liberal corruption because it's the right thing to do. Gerritsen didn't just defame me and my employer. He put my family's safety in jeopardy. As a single mother, I can constantly receive death threats from liberal allies for this accountability journalism I do. His baseless allegations intentionally add more fuel to that fire. These people do not care what damage they cause as long as it furthers their political agenda. Gerritsen is attacking me because he sees me as a threat to his political fortunes. To make matters worse, he blocked me and restricted replies so that I cannot defend myself against his callous lies. I'll have my lawyers talk to him for me. I'm blessed to have my whole team at the Countersignal backing me up, and they have offered to help me foot the bill for my legal team. We normally fight our battles in the court of public opinion. We let our news stand and speak for itself, but at times like these, we need to do more. Gerritsen threatened to have me hauled in front of Parliament under false pretenses. Now I will have my lawyers haul him in front of a judge. So there you go. And if she asks for a donation. So Mike Campbell, Gerritsen deleted the tweet, but Mike Campbell clipped it, thankfully. And he says, Liberal MP Mark Gerritsen accuses Cat Canada of being paid by a foreign government specifically to engage with him. Learns he's getting sued, deletes his post, then says he didn't accuse Cat Canada of being paid by a foreign government to engage with him. He says, I finally blocked someone on here. I draw the line at a foreign government paying you to engage with me. Parliament needs to study this, and this person needs to be brought before committee to answer questions. And it's Cat Canada, and he's got her blocked, right? And then he says, I'm not interested in interacting or amplifying that kind of division, so I'm going to be blocking Karina because of her connection to that mess. I'm not alleging that Katrina herself, was paid by the Russians. I think that he did allege that. And yeah. So pretty interesting. Here's the deleted tweet. And in response, Sean says, how about we start with the MPs who were colluding with a foreign government like China, right? Like, let's start with those people, because instead of blocking quote unquote Russian assets, right? So this Russia hoax is trying to be utilized to shut down investigative journalists like Countersignal, like Cat Canada, right? And so that's pretty interesting. Cat Canada says he tagged the wrong account in his backpedaling post and he still has me blocked. Son of a Bench says, looks like Mark Gerritsen is in panic mode. He deleted his original tweet and now he's backtracking. So he says, my language may not have been that clear. I find Cat Canada's content to be divisive, alarmist, and deeply offensive. The press progress report of the video of Katrina with Lauren Southern and Press Progress's report of the video alleged connection to a Russian influence campaign is deeply alarming. I'm not interested in interacting with or amplifying that kind of division, so I'm going to be blocking Karina because of her connection to that mess. I'm not alleging that she herself was paid by the Russians. So, but that was the implication in the original tweet. So pretty interesting. They're going to try and do this here. They already are. Cat Canada says, remember when the Trudeau Liberals spent close to $750,000 on social media influencers? Records show the Department of Health has given over $680,000 to ex-influencers since 2021. According to Blacklock's reporter, tweeters received payment to show support for the government programs without revealing that they were paid for their posts. And yeah, I've shown you examples of that as recently as yesterday. So definitely happening. It's interesting, the double standard, because on one side, the government uses social media and X and uses it in a way that's disingenuous. So if I posted, for example, and I haven't done this, but if I did post in support of some government something, and they were paying me and I didn't note that, that would be okay, right? I could take the money. You could think that I was genuinely tweeting that and had no influence to tweet it whatsoever, and you could believe me, and the government would get their benefit. I would get my money. You would think that I'm influencing, or I'm being honest with my influence, and nobody'd be the wiser, right? But when the government has somebody who genuinely looks into something and says this is a problem, they say this is a Russian influence thing and we should study this, we should shut this down. They want to censor. It has nothing to do with keeping people safe. It has nothing to do with misinformation or disinformation. It's just about control. That's it. 100% control. Let's talk about elections, because election is on the horizon, probably soon. Maybe Jagmeet Singh? No. Canada Proud says 5 out of 38 Trudeau Liberal ministerial chiefs of staff are resigning, including from Trudeau's Department of Global Affairs, Heritage, Environment, Revenue, and Mental Health. So chiefs of staff whose job it is to, maybe not run the elections or anything like that, but certainly make sure that everybody's kind of working on the same thing, pulling for the same goal, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody's on the same page. Gone. See you later. I'm out. You've got to get a campaign manager and a chief of staff. So good luck. See you later. Very interesting. That seems to be a high number, right? That's a high number, 5 of 38. That's a lot of people in a short period of time. Will there be more people, rats jumping ship? Liberal MP Alexandra Mendez said Monday that she's heard from dozens and dozens of her constituents over the summer telling her it's time for Trudeau to step down. Certainly, it's a very adamant statement from my constituents. He's no longer the right leader. And so this is a little bit long and meandering, but yeah, she's being asked, are people talking to the Liberals? Are people talking to MPs like you about how much they hate you? And she says, yeah, well, everybody says they hate Justin Trudeau. Here we go.
Tell me what you're expecting out of this caucus.
A lot of talk. Yeah. Definitely a lot of talk. I certainly have things to share about what I heard in the constituency throughout the summer. Mostly about constituents being very adamant that the Prime Minister would need to go. But also in our communications, how I felt that voters don't really know what the government has done in these past 8 years.
We know. She's saying my constituents are saying the leader has to go. And then she pivoted to voters don't really know. We've been bad. The government has been bad at communicating, and the voters don't know what we've done successfully over the last 8 years. And that's because whatever success you had has been overshadowed by the Coutts debacle, by you finding Russian agents everywhere that there's any criticism of your government, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, people may not know, but maybe they look at the success and they look at the failures and they think these two things, the failures overshadow the success by a lot. And you people seem to be communist traitors. And so they're not interested in whatever your version of success looks like. Here's a Nova Scotia MP, and he says that he's not hearing it's time for change. To him, Atlantic Canadians are progressive folks who like meat, potatoes, fisheries, and unemployment insurance. EI? He said that. It's 28 seconds. Again, this seems meandering. It seems longer than 28 seconds, and he seems out of touch. But here we go. Try and pay attention. I found myself wandering after about 10 seconds. I almost didn't play this, but the EI comment got me to commit to playing it in my head. Okay, here we go.
People at the doors. I don't get that, that sense that we're in trouble in the Atlantic. I think that the Atlantic has typically been a a progressive spot. It's not. It's one of those places that are kind of meat and potato fisheries, EI kind of folks that tell us how they think we're doing, and from all indications that I've had, they don't reflect what the polls show. When I talk to people at the doors, I don't.
So there you go. Right. I'll play it one more time.
Potato fisheries, EI kind of folks that.
Meat and potatoes, fisheries, EI. Welcome to Canada. There you go. You got free healthcare there? Ooh, love it. Holly Doan says, my constituents do not see Justin Trudeau as the person who should carry the party into the next election. That's the same as the first video clip. Holly Doan was just catching up. Patty Haydu is talking the same thing and saying, and they're saying other MPs are saying that it's time for the Liberal leader to move on. She says, no, everything's great. Everything's just fine.
One of your own caucus colleagues, Alexandra Mendez, this morning said that if she were to listen to her constituents, it would be pertinent to tell Mr. Trudeau it's time to step down, because that's what her own constituents have been telling her. What kind of message do you think that sends at a Liberal caucus retreat where you guys are trying to reset everything, so to speak?
Well, listen, I've spoken to many colleagues all across the spectrum of colleagues who are, some colleagues feeling extremely optimistic, extremely hopeful, and many colleagues who are running again. And I would just say that politics is a team sport and that we need to support each other. We need to support each other in tough times. We need to support each other when we're trying to craft legislation. We need to support each other at meetings like this. And of course, it's normal to have challenging conversations, and I think that we should. But I'll just say this. In the work that I've done this summer, I've been very focused on what the needs of my members of parliament are and how I can actually deliver for them, and that's how I'm going to keep doing the job.
She's never delivered for the constituents. Her own mother calls her out for being terrible. Gov.exe says, Mark Holland says Canadians don't want an election until 2025. And I think people watching this kind of have been responding with, like, they know they're done and they're just trying to save their own hide, save their own skin at this point in time. Somebody said Mark Holland looks like BO smells. Here we
go. There will be a choice sometime over the next year about the kind of country we have. Unfortunately, conversations with the Conservatives haven't been productive. They're mostly focused on politics and trying to cause an election. Look, it's easy to criticize, and certainly Mr. Poilievre has done that well. But I have certainly never been more motivated in my life over 8 elections to counter what he would seek to do to this country. Look, we have an election every 4 years. That's what's supposed to be happening. In the intervening period of time, people have an expectation for us to get the business of the country done. We still have over a year left to get things done. And I think people expect us to be focused on the work of the nation. And I think
I don't know how you can do the work of the nation when you have traitors in the House of Commons. Like, when you have people who you know have been selected by the Chinese Communist Party who are sitting in your House of Commons, how do you continue doing the work of the nation, Mark? Because, like, it seems like you're doing the work of traitors, because it's not the work of the nation if it's the work that the Chinese Communist Party wants done in Canada and not the Canadian citizens, right? Censorship bills, Mark? You sure? You sure? Hello everyone, thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful